Alrighty, as you know that my name is Ruşen Abbas, and I have been living in the United States since 1989. I was born and raised in Urumqi, and I was educated there. I went to university there. I came here to go to school, and then since the April of 2017, when the situation deteriorated rapidly, and the Chinese government was holding over 1 million people back then. Now it's the number went up to 3 million. But when I heard, the situation is getting really unprecedented atrocity is happening against the Uyghurs by the Chinese communist regime, and it was not really getting on the mainstream media, and a lot of people don't know what's happening. So I established Campaign for Uyghurs to raise awareness. And because of my activism, because I was being very vocal about what's happening in my homeland, my sister and my aunt were both abducted 6 days after I give a speech at one of the think tanks here in Washington, D.C. And since then, I give up my full-time job in order to focus full-time on my activism. So since October 2019, I have been basically being the executive director of Campaign for Uyghurs and the raising awareness on the current genocide against the Uyghurs. And my aunt was released a few months later. Let me just tell you a little bit about what happened.
Sure.
So my aunt and my sister, they both abducted on the same day, 6 days after my speech, from two different cities. One from Urumqi, my sister lives in Urumqi. My aunt is from Atush, a town near Kashgar, about 900 miles, which is about 1,400 kilometers away from each other. Both innocent people that doesn't need any kind of re-education or vocational training, as Chinese government, euphemistically say. My aunt was 64 years old, housewife. My sister is a retired medical doctor. So after me being very vocal about this, my aunt was released 4 or 5 months later, but it's 25 months now. There's absolutely no information on my sister's whereabouts.
Okay, so because when we were chatting, I was asking you about that, whether it would have been related directly to your work, and it seemed you weren't quite sure whether it was directly related to your work, but you think it was related to that interview you did at Hudson Institute, because you were saying I think it was after that, right? That, she went.
Well, I guess, I don't know if we had misunderstanding there, because I thought you were talking when we are chatting on direct message. You said my sister may not want to speak to me because of my work. And you were convinced that she's out somewhere, but she doesn't.
No, I'm not convinced of that. But I just was posing the question. But let's get to that. It's kind of going through the sequence of events, because I remember during your Reddit AMA, you said that you had escaped Chinese oppression in the title of your AMA. So when you made that transition from China over to the U.S., did you enter the U.S. as a refugee? Is that how you, as a refugee status?
No, I don't think I ever said I escaped. I said I was a victim of China's concentration camps because my sister is there, and I am a sister of a person being held, and my husband, his entire family is there. My parents-in-laws, 3 of my husband's sisters, their husbands, my brother-in-law and his wife, and 14 of his nieces and the nephews. So I never said I escaped, but I came here in 1989 as a visiting scholar, going to a school at Washington State University, doing research. Then I was accepted, became a graduate student. My major was plant pathology.
Okay, yeah, so that might have been a misunderstanding. The title was Uyghur Activist and Survivor of Chinese Oppression, was how you described yourself. But back then, when you immigrated, if it was through normal channels, was the situation okay in Xinjiang back then? Was it quite...
Yes, actually, you know what? I would like to speak a little bit here about what happened, you know, like why the situation got to the point it's happening, like active genocide now. If you remember, I don't know your age, but I remember clearly when China started to open up to the West, establishing diplomatic relationship with the United States in the late 70s. And then right at that time, and I was born in 1967, so right the time of I was going to high school and the university, like beginning of the university years, we had a little bit of, especially right after China opened up and established diplomatic relationship with the United States in 1979, China started to give us a little bit of freedom to read our books. There are a lot of Uyghur books about our culture, about our history, and what happened.
Religious also, or?
Yeah, some religious books. Okay. And those are the times actually we saw some like mosques being built, and the people were free to do whatever they want, basically. So, you know, I think those are the times that I would call the golden period of East Turkestan, since the occupation of 1949, when Communist China occupied East Turkestan in 1949. Right after that, they tried to use different labels.
When would you say that happened? What year? What kind of year time frame?
1949, you mean?
Oh no, sorry. When the situation kind of, you said there was a period of freedom.
No, I'm just going back to the history. Sorry.
Okay. Sure. Like the point
after
when
the 49, they started to label the Uyghurs as nationalists, and then during that's 50s, you know, during the 50s, after the Communist China took over, and then after the 60s, it was a great cultural revolution. The Uyghurs were labeled as a counter-revolutionaries. And then after that, you know, after 79, it started to loosen up a little bit. And then later on, then again, it really got bad.
So the period of time, because you were saying when you left, during that time, it was okay. It was pretty good. What was the year? What point did it start kind of turning bad again, do you think?
It started, well, you know, when you go back 1989, when the Tiananmen Square massacre happened, that's when China, basically not for the Uyghurs, but just overall to, you know, in Tibet, in southern Mongolia, and also for China. Imagine, you know, they did that to their own children. Those young students at Tiananmen Square basically got massacred. Those are the sons and the daughters of those Chinese officials in Beijing, basically. So, you know, many. I
have quite a few threads on Tiananmen Square, but that again will take us a little bit off of topic.
Okay, let me so concentrate what you asked me here about
our time is a bit tight too, but that's something I've spoken about also. But you're so just to understand the dynamic also.
Yeah, let me just tell you this. Please don't. Sure. You know, let's not interrupt each other. If we do that, then it's going to take more time.
I know, just because we have an hour, so I want to try to get it back onto, because we want to definitely get to the topic of your sister also, and that's why I want to, but yeah, if you want to finish off.
Let me just finish this then. So after, you know, like after 1989, during 1997, Rolje incident happened. Just a peaceful demonstration was met with brutal killing and the arrest afterward. And then well, before that, it was actually 1990 was the Baran massacre, and then the Rolje massacre, and then after Rolje massacre, basically when it started to turn to the like China using the religion, Islam, to persecute Uyghurs was right after 9/11 tragedy in United States. Because that summer, in 2001, China was actually advertising, like they were like propaganda videos. They were saying, come and invest to the, you know, like Westerns. I even saw that here in America. You know, they were like inviting the American firms to come and invest in East Turkestan. They were saying Xinjiang is the most beautiful, peaceful place with peaceful, friendly people, and come and invest. Your investments are safe here. But then what happened right after 9/11 tragedy? In overnight, the Chinese government came up like, they played this opportunity as, like a chance to basically getting rid of the Uyghur people, and they started to label Uyghurs as Islamic extremists.
And so you would characterize what was happening as a genocide? Do you use that word when you're saying?
Yes. Absolutely.
So your sister came to visit you in the U.S. a couple of times before she went missing. Is that correct?
Yes.
What years were those?
She came in 2014, and then 2015 she came for her youngest daughter's wedding, and then 2016 she came for her daughter's like when she had the baby, when her first granddaughter was born. And
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, she was here until August 2016. And we started to hear, actually, the situation was getting really bad at that time, especially Xinjiang was brought over from Tibet to East Turkestan. So me and my nieces, she has 2 daughters, they both live here. We were begging her to stay, not to go back. She went back because she thought, the way she is, she's not a political person. She's not outspoken. She's nothing to do with anything. She's not a religious person. She's just a simple, just an Uyghur woman living a peaceful, law-abiding life in Urumqi. So
I mean, I think because if 30% of the population is being put into camps, or 3 million or whatever it is, I mean, I think no matter what you are in Xinjiang, if you're a non-political person, you're not religious or something like that, if you see this going on around you, and also you're doing your work, your activism, I don't understand why she would disagree with you guys and still say, I'm going back. I mean, the scale of what you guys are talking about going on is massive.
No. The massiveness did not start until April 2017. She went back August 2016. So when Xinjiang came over August 2016, that's right about the time my sister went back. The things didn't happen in overnight,
I mean, but you've been talking about the situation in Xinjiang from, I mean, your time at Radio Free Asia, I think, was in the early 2000s, right?
It's 1998.
Yeah, so at that time, you're already doing a lot of activism related to Xinjiang and talking about the terrible situation and things like that. That's a long period of time. If your sister had the first opportunity to get out and apply for refugee status, I really don't see why she wouldn't do that, and why you would have to convince her from the U.S. that it's so bad there, the place that she lives, that she shouldn't go back. That's the part that doesn't really.
No. You are trying to, you are trying to make something out of.
No, I'm trying to understand it. I'm trying to understand it.
Yeah, let me explain to you. This, by the time 2015, 2016, even early 2017, still people were going back and forth. Many people were coming to U.S. We have a lot of Uyghurs here. Their families, mother and the fathers, brothers and sisters came for a visit. The situation started to deteriorate, if I said it earlier, very rapidly in April 2017. So again, respecting China as a law-binding country, developing, and we thought, just like the whole United States and the whole world thought when they basically rewarded China with 2008 Olympics and also 2022 Winter Olympics. Nobody thought that China was going to conduct genocide starting from 2017, 2018, 20.
So what was your purpose and your activism and your kind of coverage when you were at Radio Free Asia then? What was it about? Were you like what drove you to do that?
Radio Free Asia was. When they added the Uyghur service at the end of 1998, it was not so much of activism. It was just giving the news for what it is to the people who doesn't have access to free media. So because there is no any Uyghur news reporting like the Uyghur radio reporting anywhere else in the world. Radio Free Asia is the one and the only news media that the Uyghur people hear the news for what it is.
And was your coverage,
government's propagandas.
Was your coverage positive about Xinjiang back then?
Well, we used to report whatever happens. Whatever is happening there, we used to report that. Like,
did you have any positive stories about Xinjiang in your coverage?
Well, my concentration was not covering Xinjiang or East Turkestan. My coverage was reporting the Uyghurs in diaspora, what they are doing, basically. That was my responsibility at that time.
Okay, so what I want to do is, because I'm just watching the time here, and I want to make sure we get to this point because you have a chance to kind of clarify this, because this was some of the criticism you got on the Reddit AMA, and it's also one of the things I've tweeted about a number of times, a bit more of a controversial topic. So it was in regards to your employment at Guantanamo Bay with the US military, where a number of Uyghurs were held without trial. And you received a lot of criticism for that. Again, I think around the AMA period of time, for not revealing this point beforehand. So I think it's, I know we can get to your answer in a second. I think it's understandable, though, why somebody would think that it would hurt your credibility. But you told me, you know, so in our chat, you said you had, you know, a family with 3 kids to support, and the pay was good. But what was more important than that, and as a valid point, is that like everybody else, you didn't know about the terrible things that happened in Guantanamo Bay at that time to some of the prisoners. So can you, because this is the big topic that everybody wants to hear about. So can you explain your employment at Guantanamo Bay?
Oh, absolutely. It's so appalling, and the you know, I am speechless. The way that you take things out of the context, you know, you just twisted what I said on that chat, and we can just have screenshot and have people.
We can, yeah, absolutely, because I don't think I did. Yeah.
Hold on, you asked me a question if I was getting paid when I
never asked that question. I never asked that question.
And I said yes, of course. You know, I was not working for free. I was translating, and I was getting paid because I have 3 kids to support. I didn't say I took that job to support my 3 kids. There's a huge difference on that. Let me answer your question. Okay, so first of all, on that AMA, there was nothing about Gitmo. I was not doing AMA about Gitmo. I was not doing AMA about that I translated in Gitmo. I was doing AMA about my sister. So I said, I am a victim of a person who's in the you know, detention center. So anyway, you know, let me just clarify one more thing here, if you don't interrupt me, please. In your recent interview with Arslan about 2 months ago, and you were so comfortable, basically, you know, very comfortably distorting my words and distorting the fact. And when you said 1 hour 48 minutes mark, you know, quote unquote, Ruşen Abbas did her AMA, then people uncovered that she worked for Gitmo, overseeing Uyghurs who were detained by the US. When you said those words, you know, what is your evidence for calling me, saying that I was overseeing Uyghurs, while repeatedly I said that I was working as a translator? And what is the definition for the word overseeing? You know, in my limited English, because I learned English in my adulthood when I was 21 years old when I came to US. But even in my limited English, in my vocabulary, I understand that overseeing means someone is supervising in an official capacity. I was not supervising anybody there. I was not overseeing the Uyghurs. I was just translating.
So you were overseeing all of the communication between the U.S. authorities there and the Uyghurs? Or
no, that's wrong, because I was just a translator. I was just translating.
That's what I'm saying. You're overseeing the translation. You are there. You're the middleman between the interrogators and the Uyghurs who are being held there. So
yeah, I was just saying whatever the interrogators say, translating that to the Uyghurs. When the Uyghurs say, I was translating back to them. So I was just being this machine.
Okay. All right, so let's clear that up right now, and we can finish that. You were overseeing the translation. You were not overseeing them in the capacity of a supervisor or anything.
Yeah, but
like
you didn't say she was overseeing the translation of the Uyghurs. And then secondly, you know, you kept saying that in the 2 recent videos that you said that I got exposed quickly. What do you mean by expose? Expose is something when somebody is hiding, but I have been saying about my Guantanamo work everywhere. I have been so vocal. There is like documentaries are being made. There is like interviews, news reports. It's on my resume. It's everywhere that I translated in Gitmo because I'm proud of that work. Because I helped those innocent Uyghurs so the American interrogators can understand who they are. Well, and then they got released.
Yeah. I want to ask you about that because you're talking about and I noticed you mentioned that recently also a number of times that you're proud of your work there. But you're right, there are some videos of you that does mention it. I think from the perspective of people participating in the AMA, they would think that that's a pretty big conflict of interest that should be mentioned. But that's, you know, whether you need to bring that in or not, it's a debatable topic. But when you're talking about you're proud, as I know you said you're proud as an American citizen also that you served there and did this stuff. But I watched your video from 10 years ago when you seemed really disappointed at the United States for not closing Guantanamo Bay. So was there a period of time where you went from that, because you seemed very upset in that video, and now to where it's more this, I'm proud that I took part in this thing that was, you know, well, in the capacity of a translation. Was there a transition where you said, okay, you know what, maybe it's not so bad?
Well, again, you know, that video is not something that I was so upset. It's just that I was disappointed for the time it took to release those Uyghurs. And it was not because of the US, it was because of China again. Because US will approach another country to release those,
I'm talking about a different video, sorry.
Uyghurs. Yeah. I'm sorry?
It's a different video, sorry. Then, because the one I'm talking about, you were specifically talking about the deadline for closing Guantanamo Bay coming up, and that the US wasn't closing.
I was so happy. President Obama said he's going to close Guantanamo, and the deadline is approaching. I really hope that this government will do the right thing and release those Uyghurs, right? It's still
right,
yeah, that's what I said. So again, let me just point it out here. You have previously twisted what I said on that tweet about Gitmo. I said the Uyghurs who released from Guantanamo, Uyghurs in particular being in Guantanamo, they said that they had a better life in Guantanamo than the current Orwellian hell, the surveillance police state in our homeland as the Uyghurs. And I even said it clearly because they had the praying rugs, they had Quran, they can have a holy Quran with them, they can pray, they can fast. Even during Ramadan, I requested to bring some dates for those Uyghurs so they can bring their fast with dates, and the government arranged bring dates for all the Muslims there, not just 22 Uyghurs. So they could practice their religion. But currently, what's happening in East Turkestan is China's waging war on Islam. China's outlying all the regular, normal Islamic practices as extremism. So that's what I meant.
Yeah, I guess the U.S. has a different approach. And while you were in there in Guantanamo, did you see any evidence? Did they have any like de-radicalization programs or skills training programs, as far as you know, or they didn't
not
really?
Not at all. Not at all. I stayed there from April 2002 till December 2002. I left like in the middle of December, and during that time there was nothing was happening there. Later, after I left the base. And a couple years later, when there was some like hearing or some other like news reports came up and said there were some enhanced technology was implemented and things like that. I just read on the news, just like that you are saying there is no evidence about this and that. I didn't see any evidence. I just read on the news a couple years after I left. And they said that during the, I think, end of 2002 or early 2003, they were implementing some of these, but I was already gone by then.
Okay. So considering that you're involved in activism and regardless of the positive role that you played personally, you did still participate in the Guantanamo Bay economy, so to speak. And so have you been doing any activism related to trying to get Guantanamo Bay closed, especially because you were disappointed before, or you haven't really done any activism surrounding that?
Well, because the Uyghur case needs more attention than anything else. Yes, I don't agree with any kind of injustice anywhere, but right now there are so many disinformation and the false narratives and the propaganda coming out of China, and a lot of people are trying to discredit our work and calling us liars, and whatever we say about this active genocide, they are trying to undermine our work. So I am not a human rights activist for the world. I got involved with activism because of what is happening to Uyghur people. And because of China's information blockade, not many people know what's happening. Like in whole United States, there are only like 10–15% people know exactly what's happening. The Uyghur women are facing forced marriage, and the Uyghur children are taken from their families, and the Uyghurs are being like, selling to companies as slave laborers. So all these things that we need to raise awareness, we need to let the world know. And plus, it's my first priority to get my sister released.
Absolutely. Just to kind of give you the perspective of somebody who may have been on the Reddit AMA and criticized you for the kind of position. I can understand if somebody was a Uyghur activist and they were trying to provide evidence for what was going on in Xinjiang and they had nothing to do with Guantanamo Bay. It would be a silly thing to say to them. And people do this still. They say, well, why don't you talk about what the US is doing? Why don't you talk about the terrible things the US is doing? But your situation is a bit different. You actually took a salary and participated in the Guantanamo Bay economy, and then you moved on and you forgot about it. So I think from the
Can I ask you a question on that? If you're, I understand what you're saying. I'm sorry, I'm also, we are already 30 minutes in, so I'm trying to save time here. Can I ask you a question? So you have been living in China for how many years? 20 years now?
12 years.
How many? 12 years? Okay, 12 years, yeah. So China is basically right now being the totalitarian regime. Everybody knows what China is doing to the Uyghurs, to the Tibetans, to the Southern Mongolians. And you have a business there, and you are making money in that system. And the government is actually promoting you. There were interviews in the China's Global Times network, which is basically funded by Chinese Communist Party.
I was not in Global Times. I was not in Global Times. If I was, I don't know. But I was in China Daily.
No, yeah, it was. There was articles about promoting your business, and also
nobody's promoting my business. But that's the point, though, right? Is that I'm here to ask for that evidence, because you're on Twitter and you're retweeting things from guys like Erkin Siddiq. I don't know his name. And he's basically, there's this army of people who are downloading videos off of TikTok and misrepresenting them, saying this is a Uyghur child crying because they've been separated from their family. And it's debunked over and over and over again. And you're following these people. And even in our Reddit AMA, people were posting things underneath exactly like that, saying this is a Uyghur person who was separated from their child. She was dropping her child off at school, and she's a frontline worker for COVID-19. She's a hero of China being misused for this propaganda. So from my point of view, I'm sitting here saying, if this is so big, if 3 million people are being taken away and imprisoned, why does this narrative have to rely on so many liars? And I think it's a valid question. And especially
you are right. You are absolutely right. That is a valid question. Because of the information blockade, because China controls all kind of information, we get a tiny little bit of info here and there. And of course, yes, sometimes we try to verify, and some of them it's difficult to verify. And if there's any mistakes, we quickly we delete them.
No, it doesn't. They're all still up there.
But I don't think I have done any those kind of videos that's not being verified. The ones that I am using, I have a lot of backup. If we had time, I was going to, can I share my screen and show you some of the videos about this kid's situation you just mentioned, let me see if I know how to,
we're at 34 minutes though, so if you keep it quick, and then we'll just go
I'll do that. I'm just going to show you, because you are talking about the kid's situation, and I want to show you something. And I heard that you have 4 kids, and look at this one here. Okay, look at this. Okay. Okay. Look at how.
Okay. Are you sharing your screen?
Yeah. Did you see it?
Where did you send it to? I don't see the shared screen.
I thought. Oh, I played the whole thing. You didn't see it?
Oh no, I didn't. You have to click share your screen. I think it's on the.
Oh, I see. Here we go.
Okay.
Share. Hold on. Okay. Okay, it's not working. Can you give me permission to share my screen?
You have to request it. Let me see here. I only have a way to edit your name. It should be on the bottom of StreamYard. It should say share screen. It should
I did, and then it's asking.
I'm not getting anything here.
All right.
We'll share on the tweets. We'll share it on the tweets afterwards. But
you know what I'm trying to say here is you know, on this screen, you know, what I wanted to share with you has this young girl, and there's this Han Chinese man holding and touching her, and you know, like very pervert way. This is legitimate. You should see her face. This is young girl there. He's asking her to sing the Chinese, you know, like communist propaganda song.
But I mean, that's absolutely terrible. If I see something like that, that's terrible. When I see Joe Biden, you know, doing the same thing, you know, getting a bit too touchy-feely with kids, I get uncomfortable too. I don't care who it is. If I see a video like that, it will be very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
but to say, you know,
being a parent, how do you feel about that? And also, there are so many children they are missing. We've got parents looking for their children everywhere. Actually, they cannot, you know, when the parents are going in overseas to study and leave their kids with their mother and the fathers, which is, you know, the kids' grandparents, and even they are in the custody of grandparents, they are taken away to state-run orphanages. And there are news reports over 500,000 Uyghur children are taken away from Uyghur families.
Why do you think then? Because it's not a matter of, like you said, people trying to validate the information and get it right. It's a matter of people legitimately just downloading something and then attaching a random text on it saying this is what's happening. Why is this so? Because I've had people contact me also saying, oh, my uncle is missing and stuff like that. I've gone through about 6 of them so far. And every time when you look through their Twitter history, the relationship they had with them changed, their age changed, all kinds of stuff changed. So without doubt, there's a bunch of liars who are surrounding this. It doesn't mean there aren't legitimate issues. Why? Why are there so many people? We're talking thousands and thousands of these people lying about it.
It's not lying about it, Daniel. It is the Chinese regime is purposely doing that. Just yesterday, there was this young girl's video was sounded like there was a sound added to that, like montaged it, you know, saying some really disgusting things. And quickly other people said, this is not real. So why the Chinese regime is doing that? Of course, try to discredit us. Just like this year, you know, this Kurban festival, they released a video clip from like 2014 or 2013, like long time ago. I have seen that several years ago, and dated. Actually, they put stamp, this is 2020 Kurban festival. So why are they doing that?
So for example,
just
when Erkin,
discredit us.
So, for example, when Erkin posts the video of the frontline COVID worker, the Uyghur lady, and says she's been separated from her child, and you can go to the place where he got it from, you can see the video, and there's nowhere else that anybody has ever said this. This is just something he randomly made up. That's the fault of the Chinese government.
Well, Daniel, what I know is, I know Omar Farouk's children are missing. I know Tahir Imin's daughter is missing. I know Dilnoor's 2 kids are missing. I know there are so many children are missing. When I travel around the world, I went to Australia, Turkey, so many countries in Europe, Canada, and United States. We have so many people, their children are missing. Where are they? Then show me, where are they? You know?
Yeah, I mean, the testimony thing is. I mean, I'm sure there are because I'll get to that in a second with your sister. I'm sure there are people who are missing, but when I've gone through them over and over again, and I'm seeing that this is fake, this is fake, this is fake. Like, to me, this is a red flag for a lot of people, especially when you consider the incentive. You know, the ex chief of staff to Colin Powell said that the U.S. has an incentive to destabilize China through Xinjiang. And they've done this before. They've done this divide and conquer thing. And the U.S. has done terrible things around the world, and we know that. And they've tortured people in Guantanamo Bay. So when you pose that question to me about I have a business here in China with all of these accusations against China, your organization, Campaign for the Uyghurs, is funded by the NED. It's basically funded by the CIA, the US government, who is doing terrible things around the world, who did terrible things in Guantanamo Bay, and who has an incentive to destabilize Xinjiang. So this is where it comes into where people are looking at this AMA and they're looking at what you're doing, and finding it to be a little bit hypocritical or potentially.
Can I just ask you a question about being
hypocritical? Yeah.
Didn't you tell me that you are using double VPN today? Why is that?
I'm not using a VPN. I'm not using a VPN. I'm using my Hong Kong SIM card.
Why did you say that you need to use VPN then?
I do have to use a VPN usually, but yes, there's censorship. Because there's censorship in China.
Okay, so you know. Why do you think the Uyghurs, what do they gain from pushing, you know, what do Uyghurs stand to gain from lying? And what do you gain from basically the CCP narratives on us? You know,
to answer your question, I'm looking for the truth. To answer your question, the NED has funded $8 million worth of grants to Uyghur groups in the U.S. since 2003. That's my answer to what do people potentially have to gain.
NED, what does NED stands for? That is
National Endowment for the Democracy, and its founder said
that is for democracy. We don't have any.
No, it's not. The NED doesn't care about democracy. They will install a dictatorship as long as it's friendly to U.S. interests. This is, you can go through Nicaragua, you can go through all these countries and look what they do. The founder of the NED has said that what the CIA used to do covertly, they do now through the NED. I mean, that piece about the NED, it shouldn't even be a mystery to anybody anymore.
Well, you know, what I know is Uyghur people are facing genocide, and that there are over 600 leaked Chinese documents to prove that, and that there is a concentration camps holding more than 3 million people. Millions more are used as the slaves on the forced labor, and we have a complete surveillance police state. So those are the reality. So I would like you to just answer to me and on my face. Are you calling me a professional woman of color a liar? Would you say that those victimized by police here, you know, like, well, what is, you know, like what is happening in China? I'm talking about the China's genocide. So are you accusing me of being a liar? Would you say those to the victimized by police here in the United States? Would you tell them that you are lying?
I can say that. I can say that the people who have approached me on Twitter, and I have looked into their stories, or the people who are posting photos of frontline COVID workers, Uyghur women, and calling them, saying that they are.
I don't want to talk about that.
They're separated from family, are categorically liars. For you, I'm not. What I'm doing with you here. Can I finish answering your question? What I'm doing with you here is I'm seeking for the truth. And I'm stating fact that you worked in Guantanamo Bay. You're funded by an agency that that oversees regime change all around the world, and I'm saying fact. What does that mean? What does that lead to? I don't know, but these are facts, right? That's all I would like to deal with here. I'm not calling you a liar. I'm here talking to you for the reason to get to the truth. But when I'm talking about this stuff is because. You know, one of the reasons I keep asking whether you felt you might have been responsible for the radio silence from your sister, whether, you know, it be because she's detained or she just cut off all ties with her overseas family, was because of the nature of the organization that's funding you. The NED, considering what it does, it funds political warfare and rebellions around the world. And now we're in this situation where, again, the U.S. Secretary of State to Colin Powell said that the U.S. has an incentive to destabilize China through Xinjiang. Tensions with China is increasing. And it seems like a really risky situation for your sister, considering she came to visit you also, and she's going back to China. Don't you feel that what you're doing before she was...
It's fairly simple, Daniel. Let me speak here because we don't have much time left. Right. It's fairly simple. If they really want to prove me wrong, show my sister alive. Show me
she might be detained. She might legitimately be detained. But that's what I'm saying. I have no idea what.
Her being a Uyghur, and
so hold on a second here. So you think it has nothing to do with you working for the CIA, an organization that's actively looking...
What do you mean by CIA? You talk about the fact. Show me your evidence that I work for CIA.
The NED is a branch of the CIA. The NED
okay, so you having a brewing company that's being promoted by the Chinese government.
Well, I'm asking about you right now.
Are you working for Chinese?
I am not working. I am not working for the Chinese Communist Party. I wouldn't have to run a business.
Same thing. Then I don't work for CIA.
Are you funded by the NED?
Yes.
Does the NED fund regime change operations?
NED and the U.S. government are funding our campaign for Uyghurs. It seems like why it's so unnatural thing for you, because basically
do they also
the
fund
communist government is more... Are you saying the communist government is more reputable than a democracy where citizens can criticize their government openly? And you are saying that...
I'm asking whether it's problematic for your sister, whether it would put her at risk, whether you working for an organization that oversees regime change. So are you saying that the Chinese
government is punishing my sister because NED funded our organization? Is that
I'm not saying that. I have no idea if that happened. I'm asking you, do you see the risk that you put her in by doing that?
Well, I am speechless on what you are saying here. This is what kind of...
You can disagree with me. You can say no. You can say no. By working for the NED, I don't feel like I put my sister under any undue additional
What does
risk.
that have anything to do with my sister? What I do here? I left when I was 21 years old. I have been living in the United States for 31 years. I am 53 years old. My responsibility is my responsibility here. Why would that put my sister in a
because
risk?
She's coming and visiting you. I have no idea how involved she was with you or not.
She's coming visiting me, sir. She's coming visiting her 2 daughters. She has 2 daughters.
Let's flip this around. Let's flip this around. If I was an immigrant to the U.S. and I'm living in the U.S. and I have a brother living in Beijing who works for an organization that's specifically designed to interfere with the U.S. Presidential elections, and I'm regularly going over to visit my brother in Beijing.
Let's talk about China's genocide. Those are not the stuff that
can I finish, please? Because this is exactly the situation in reverse. In your more reputable U.S. democracy, I would absolutely be at risk. My brother would absolutely be putting me at risk if he was working with a Beijing Communist Party organization designed to overthrow American governments or fund activists in the U.S. Absolutely. So from my point of view, I don't see it. Yeah.
Daniel, what I am doing, what NED is funding is a human rights issue. It's not a political issue. This is a human rights issue. CCP is a mafia. It's not even a government. Chinese communist regime has absolutely any kind of respect for human beings, not for the accountability. That's why you are saying that. You are saying they are punishing my sister.
I don't know that. She could also have been either, but this is just, there's 3 possibilities here, right? She could have either been legitimately detained. She could have either voluntarily cut off ties with all of her overseas family because of the risk you're putting her at, or she could have been ordered to not contact any of her overseas family anymore. That, from my point of view, these are the 3 possibilities.
Show me.
I don't know. I don't know, but so the point is, so I think the best thing to sum this up is that you don't see any of your activities as putting her at risk, and you see the NED as a benevolent kind of a respectable organization that does good around the world. Because if we're talking about regimes and what they do around the world, the US, the CIA, and the NED has done terrible, terrible things around the world, and they're funding you now. So let's balance this out a little bit.
Are you saying China is better than United States or Canada?
I'm not saying that. No, I think China does a lot of things better than Canada and the United States, and I think the United States and Canada does a lot of other things much better than China does. But I think it's important we have a place of balance here.
Speaking of my sister and the 3 million people and the millions more who are forced to stand as slaves, they are innocent. My sister is innocent. She has not committed any crime. If they arrested her because of my activism, fine. Why is my sister being punished? Do you think that's acceptable?
No, I don't think it's acceptable.
3 million people are sent to concentration camps. And you know what the ambassador Cui Tiankai, the Chinese ambassador to United States, said to CNN when he was asked about those camps? He said, we are making those Uyghurs are normal persons. Imagine that. Uyghurs, because of their religion, because of their ethnic identity, because of their culture, they are being viewed as abnormal commodities. Imagine that.
I don't buy the 3 million number. I'll be honest with you. And there's plenty of documents out there that show how that would be absolutely impossible, even with all of these kind of satellite imagery. Like a lot of the satellite imagery stuff comes from a guy from ASPI in Australia, Nathan Rooser, who's funded by the military-industrial complex. And he also posts things where he says this is a QR code that doesn't that allows the police to track this seller, and it's a WeChat pay code. So I don't buy it. But what I want to ask you too is that, because obviously the World Uyghur Congress, they also say that because the one thing that nobody wants to talk about on the side of talking about these issues is that there's a legitimate terrorism problem in Xinjiang, and the World Uyghur Congress said that ETIM, that he said the founder is a political prisoner, and that the ETIM is an organization that hasn't existed for 10 years. Would you say would you agree with them that is the case, that ETIM is not a real organization or a terrorist organization or someone that's causing this kind of violence?
There are books are being written about that. Professor Sean Roberts just released a wonderful book, and the people can read that. I don't want to waste time on that, but let me just say something on that. When we look at this statistically about the number of what have been labeled as terrorist incidents in China, it's very clear that the disproportionate targeting of an entire ethnic group, the entire Uyghurs, is completely unacceptable. If the same logic were to apply to the those knife attacks that frequently occur in at the schools, to the school children in China by Han Chinese people, then all the Han Chinese men should be locked up in a concentration camp.
So I don't think that's happening. But to balance this out,
this is not about terrorism, or this is not about extremism. This is about the Belt and Road Initiative. That's perfectly clear. The CCP wants unrestricted ability to take the Uyghur land and the homes, so they can, like a final solution, they can just get rid of the Uyghurs, just like what they are doing right now, the genocide they're conducting. Because the Belt and Road Initiative is the reason that what's happening, because that is Xi Jinping's signature project for the global domination, the imperialistic dream. And our homeland sits on the epicenter, the access to the Central Asia, to Europe, to Middle East, to North Africa, actually all over the world.
Okay, is ETIM a real organization that's still in existence today?
I have no idea, because I have never really.
Well, I mean, so the U.S. government had a press conference in 2018. The U.S. military, and it was Major General Heckler who called ETIM a terrorist organization. But since they don't have de-radicalization programs, arguably they have radicalization programs, but not de-radicalization programs. What they did was they showed that what they did with those Uyghur ETIM operatives in Afghanistan, they blew them up. They fired missiles at them and they completely destroyed them.
Let's talk about the genocide, Daniel. Let's talk about the genocide that's happening, because I am not interested in what happened in Afghanistan.
Well, it's all perspective, right? Because if you're saying you don't want to acknowledge.
I am not a human rights activist for the world. I am only trying to raise
This is Uyghur related. This is Uyghur related here that I'm talking about.
Okay, what I know is, let me tell you this. There were 22 Uyghurs sent to Guantanamo because Pakistan turned them into US as foreign fighters. And then US needed to find out who they are, what they are. But then again, China at that time pressured the US government to label the organization as terrorist organization. This is what I have read. So let's be honest, everything I say about Guantanamo, about the current situation, you are pushing back to Guantanamo, or you are pushing back here and there. But let's talk about this genocide. That's current. That's what's happening now. China is conducting active genocide. So
while the Uyghur population is going up in Xinjiang, right?
No, Uyghur population is not going up in Xinjiang.
The Adrian Zenz report showed that the reduction in the population was Han Chinese. A lot of the Han Chinese had moved out, but we're not seeing the numbers. We're not seeing the numbers to support a genocide. Why are there not Uyghur people fleeing to the refugee camps on the bordering countries? These places would be overflowing if there was a genocide going on and 3 million people were being detained. Your sister would not have gone back, even with this story of it getting bad after it happened afterwards. There is nothing.
That didn't come up to the surface until, let me repeat, like 5th time.
No, I know. I said that. I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that. But I'm saying I still don't buy it that all of a sudden there's a genocide happening. There's absolutely no evidence of it. The refugee camps on the bordering countries are not overflowing with Uyghurs. There are still Uyghur people who are going overseas and coming back. There are plenty of Uyghur travelers who go to the Middle East on their spiritual journeys and come back.
No, those are not Uyghurs.
What you were saying is going on.
Those are the set up people. Those are the Uyghur officials set up by
the Hui Muslims also.
Yeah, of course, Hui Muslims dressed up in Uyghur dresses. We have this Uyghur traditional dress, and all these Hui Muslim women was dressed up like Uyghurs. So
I've heard that before.
Let me just say something. There is a vow, never again, when the Holocaust happened, but that's happening on our watch right now. Even though a Chinese military official gave a speech stating, and do you read Chinese, by the way? Can you read Chinese?
I speak Chinese. I don't read it, but I speak
You have been living in China for 12 years and you didn't show respect of learning learning how to read, but that's fine. So
if you want to call that disrespectful, and I call disrespectful working for a CIA, but whatever, we'll agree to disagree on that.
We have to speak with the fact, not as you're try to just distort the truth. And let me just finish this. So Nazi Germany, basically Nazi Germany kept
never again. That's the thing you said.
Yeah, never again is happening. And just because we cannot prove it, and you cannot deny it's not happening, because there is a Chinese military official give a speech, and there is a Chinese writing, and also has an English translation. Let me send you that. So he said, they have to learn. China has to learn from the Nazi Germany and the mistakes they made in losing. Did you hear that? They studied why they lost. The Chinese officials studied why the Nazi Germany lost. And now, because they know the Nazi Germany kept extensive records of who sent where and which Holocaust and who was sent to gas chambers, what do you think China is doing?
I've never seen anything like that, but if you send it to me, I'll take a look at it afterwards.
Let me send you that.
Yeah, I want to ask you too, though, for never again, this phrase never again, would you also agree that the never again is also an important phrase in terms of what happened before the first Iraq invasion, where they had an activist, a 14-year-old activist, go up on stage crying, saying that Iraqi soldiers were throwing babies from incubators and letting them die. And it was one of the integral moments
let's talk about the Uyghur genocide, because I have 2 minutes left.
You're talking about the Nazi Germany, so I'm talking about.
Unfortunately,
I'm sorry. Can you please?
I'm sorry if there's unjust everywhere. At least we can talk about that. You can talk.
That's fine. That's fine. But this ties into why I'm doing what I'm doing about Xinjiang. This is very, very important to why I'm pushing back and why I'm asking for actual evidence. When you say there's no evidence, and I said there needs to be evidence, because I think never again is also a very important phrase in terms of never again being tricked by US propaganda to go in and kill innocent people because of something.
I can't believe you are saying that. Let's go back to my sister.
So do you think that's important? I would like to know. Why am I disagreeing with a lot of these activists? I'm telling you why now. This is directly related to Xinjiang. I am disagreeing because never again is also very, very important to never be tricked by American propaganda again, to excuse atrocities. Do you agree with me or not, that that's also an important never again?
So I completely understand your position because you are living in China. You have a very luxurious life and business. You are making Chinese money, and you are being benefited from the Uyghur forced labor, Uyghur slaves.
Do you not agree with that statement? You do not agree with that statement? You think
all that. I understand you say all that. At least, you are wonderful. You are Canadian. You are in China. You can criticize America. That's wonderful. That's true. We have to do the right thing. But what really upsets me and hurts me is how you are completely repeating the CCP's propaganda. The
CCP propaganda said what I said. They've said what I've said. I'm just asking a simple question, whether you think that is a legitimate thing that we should also say never again to. That's all I'm saying.
Never again to all atrocities. That's right. Never again to all atrocities. Never again to genocide. Never again to Holocaust. Because there is a genocide going on and the Chinese government is destroying all evidence because they are learning the lesson from what happened, how the Nazi Germany kept all the records. So the Chinese government is destroying and they're feeding us with false evidence and the false videos.
So do you see the dilemma here though, that for my never again, having you coming here and saying, or all these other people saying that there's a massive genocide going on, there's 3 million people being incarcerated, but we don't have evidence. Do you see that that is really problematic with my never again?
I am not saying we don't have evidence. Chinese government is destroying the evidence, but we have people are talking, the witnesses, and we have 600 pages of Chinese leaked documents. And just because, if you read Chinese, maybe your wife can read that for you. The 600 pages of Chinese leaked documents says exactly what you said. They said, West will cry out, West will say human rights abuse, this and that, but don't distracted by that. Keep doing what you are doing, because they knew someday people like you will come and defend and they say, show me your evidence, what you can. But just recently, the PBS Frontline did a documentary, China Undercover. A Chinese official, a Chinese man said, talking about this complete surveillance police state and all these atrocities that Uyghurs are facing, when the gentleman asks him, isn't it violation of the human rights? And he giggled, he smiled, and he said, what human rights? They don't have any kind of human rights.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I've seen some of these PBS documentaries. I've seen how the BBC did it, and it's like, they go in and they report on all these things that they haven't seen, and then meanwhile they go over to Indonesia and then they cover their de-radicalization camps, and they put beautiful music over top and they cover it in a completely different way. But I think, I know you've got to go, but what I want to know is, because you were trying to paint me in a way when talking about me as a businessman making Chinese money and painting me as being corrupted by the fact that I'm making money here. That's what it sounds like. So what I want to ask you.
No, I am just giving you back your own medicine, because that's how you have been accusing me for Guantanamo and how I made money from this and that. I'm not the same thing. I'm not working for an organization that is known to be a regime change operation system. You are. There's a big difference here. I own a brew pub here. If you think I'm lying about that, then I could label your attitude of profiting of cheap Chinese labor and exporting masks during the pandemic as imperialistic.
You should come here and talk to my. You should come here and talk to my staff sometimes. They've been. Some of them have been working for me for 5 years, and they're making.
You are so content to attack the West while China's cracking down and brutalizing the vulnerable ethnic groups like Tibetans and Mongolians while they're conducting genocide against the Uyghurs, and the stripping off people's religion and rights, and they demand a uniform ideology of, just propaganda of Chinese communist atheist ideologies. And you are content to promote this robotic denial of freedom and indeed free thought?
I think the onus is on when somebody is claiming genocide and they're being funded by an organization that has lied about atrocities before in order to excuse aggressions. I think the onus is on you and the organizations to come up with the evidence that there's actually a genocide going on.
I started my activism. I started working and promoting the Uyghur human rights long before the NED grant. And they just, by the way, you mentioned my sister might have been taken because of that. My sister was taken more than 2 years ago, and the NED grant just started like October 2019. So it has been just 1 year because I.
So you're saying you weren't involved with the NED before then?
No. Campaign for Uyghurs was established 3 years ago, and
but you were I have looked it up. You were elected as the director of communications for the Uyghur American Association in 2006. They were receiving well over $100,000 per year from the NED. They had a $280,000 grant in 2016, and they had additional fundings for their other programs. So you were involved with the NED in some capacity before.
Because just like what the name said, democracy. The NED is endowment for democracy that promotes democracy, not totalitarianism.
That's fine, but you were in fact. You just told me that you weren't involved with them. You were involved with them before.
I was not paid because I was living in California. The organization may have, the project may have, but I was not the paid staff. I was volunteering.
As a director of communication.
Yeah, I was volunteering. Okay. I didn't get anything from any
and that was
other
before,
organization.
Yeah. I mean, these connections are all really problematic. And then the military-industrial complex also, right? L3, you're working with L3, who does battlefield training and makes parts for missiles.
I don't know those because they hired me as translator, and I had no idea what else they do.
They're a battlefield military training company.
Okay. And right now, the main issue is China's genocide.
When you were being...
There's 5 elements. When you look at, Geneva Convention, there's 5 elements of genocide. If one act is happening, you can call it genocide. But China is doing all 5 right now in our homeland. So it is China's genocide, and that's what I am working on right now. And thank you so much. And we can do it another time. It's 6 after, 10.
I appreciate the time. I know you've got to wake up early, so I will.
Thank you. That was very nice, actually. I enjoyed, and looking forward to it. So let's talk based on facts.
Yeah, definitely send me those other things you were talking about also by direct chat. Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay.